Hello and welcome back, everybody, to the Global Flow series. I am so excited to introduce Guy Finley to you today. Thank you so much for being here. It's a huge honor and very, very excited to have you.
Thank you. I'm glad to be with you too, Joanna.
Awesome, awesome. So, today we're going to be talking about how to stop being afraid once and for all, which I'm really excited about because it's been something that's been a big issue for me. But before we get stuck in, I want to read your official bio so as everybody knows exactly who you are and why they need to listen up and maybe take some notes on this call today. So Guy is a best-selling author of The Secret of Letting Go, The Essential Laws of Fearless Living, and more than 40 books and audio albums on self-realization, including his newest book, The Secret of Your Immortal Self. Guy is the founder and director of the Life of Learning Foundation, a non-profit center for self-study located in Southern Oregon, where he gives talks 4 times each week. Guy is a faculty member at the Amiga Institute in Rhinebeck, New York, and is a regular expert contributor to BeliefNet and the Huffington Post. I was like, what is that? For more information, you can check him out at guyfinley.org, and we'll have lots more information on how you can get in touch later on and sign up to keep in touch with him. So thank you so much. I mean, just that bio in itself is quite incredible. And yeah, I'd love to know a little bit more about your story and how you got to be teaching this and a little bit about your background.
Well, I suppose it's interesting. I don't know
It is.
that I don't know. It doesn't hold a lot of interest for me anymore. But the bottom line, Joanna, is that I was raised in a very, very successful family. My father, among his notable achievements, really was the forerunner for late night television talk shows. Everybody's so used to them now, but he had the very first one before people that most of the listeners won't even know who they are anymore. But among uh, the celebrities of that time, growing up as a boy, their children were my pals. You know, the children of Desi and Lucy Arnaz and Dean Martin and the Minnellis and the Sinatras. I mean,
Wow.
these were my these were my running pals. And I don't know how else to put it, but from the time that I was probably 7 years old, uh, it was evident to me that there was something amiss. I didn't have any way to put it into context when I was a boy,
Mm.
but looking back, I can see that in my heart there was a contradiction that why, if all of these people are so successful and powerful, why do they, excuse the word, stink of fear?
Mm.
Why is there so much jealousy and nitpicking and dysfunction? You know, I mean, my own parents, God rest their souls, they were dysfunctional, alcoholics. I didn't know anybody that, you know, back then, at least in the world I grew up, didn't have their own doctor come and give them shots to put them to sleep and shots to get them up. I mean, that was the deal. So I just couldn't understand all of that pain.
Mm.
So my life, from the time that I was 7 or 8 years old, I started wondering what in the world is going on. Things are not what they seem to be, and if they're not, then what is real? I mean, that's the
Mm.
bottom line. And then I went through all the permeations, Joanna. I became myself a successful uh, songwriter and performing artist, first white soft rock group ever to sign with Motown Records, 1971. I worked with Neil Diamond. I wrote music for motion pictures and television. I did the whole shebang. Had a
Mm.
house in Malibu, tennis court, horses, you know, the whole thing. until I hit a stone around the age of 27 years old. And I had become a slave to the very thing that I thought was the most beautiful thing in the world. And I could, again, how do I understand this? How has my life turned into be something where the things that I've done were supposed to set me free, and now I'm doing everything to keep that life in place? So another huge contradiction. Push comes to shove, I finally throw everything into the basket. I basically quit, and I decided I needed to go find answers. I went around the world a few times, sat at the feet of a lot of so-called well-known guru types. Came back home after a spell, disillusioned that anybody was going to snap me on the forehead with a peacock feather or open me up with a Shaktipat or whatever the heck it was that I thought was going to happen, only to have the immense good fortune, and I imagine that it was natural in the scheme of things, to run into the most unlikely Christian mystic, an illumined man, that I spent the next 15 years directly under his arm, becoming a co-director for his foundation. He told me to write my first book, which was The Secret of Letting Go. That became an international bestseller. I mean, it's a trippy story.
It's amazing.
Yeah, and that was like 40 years ago, 35 years ago. So that's what I've been doing, and there you have in a nutshell the whole shebang, at least as much as we can talk about.
Oh, I mean, it's an incredible story, and the fact that you happen to meet your Christian mystic Illumim guy, that's no coincidence, right? Like that was so.
No, it was no coincidence.
Right.
It was no. I mean, even without getting too woo woo.
We love the woo woo. Don't worry.
No, I know. But when I first met him, I didn't like him. But when I shook hands with him, he looked me right in the eyes with this piercing look, and he said, "I know all about you." And I thought, "Oh, holy mother of pearl, what does that mean?" And then I never left his side until he died, and he'd give me instructions that I followed. To this day, I'm working diligently at being the best possible reflection of what I know is true as I can be. And that's all I can do, and that's all I am, honestly.
Yeah, that's amazing. Before we dive into more of that, the one question I'm asking everybody, which is the same, apart from that, I'm just letting it flow. But what does flow mean to you?
I love the way you say flow.
Flow.
Flow. What does flow? What does flow mean to you?
I don't have an accent. I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh yeah, I know. Look, we're in it right now, aren't we? If you want to make sure that you're not in the flow, just think about it.
Okay. I love it. I love it. I'm writing that down now.
And that's the bottom line. We are at once remarkable in our capacity as human beings to imagine and to use our functions, our faculties to create things. And it's great, as an author, a composer, someone who loves to dance or play a sport, you get into the flow of things. It's tremendous. But the bottom line is that before we are endowed as creators, we are ourselves creations. And if we want to know what it means to be in the flow, we have to understand our relationship to this broader scheme of laws and principles that have brought us into existence for a purpose. So if we're outside the purpose, there's no way to be in the flow. It's impossible. My work is about helping individuals continually dive deeper into this living relationship with what I call the presence moment.
Mm.
In the presence of the Lord, if you want, in the presence of the full-blown now, which is a convergence of all of the things that animate life, bring it into creation and take it out of existence. All one moment that we are ourselves intended to be a part of. To the degree that we can be present to ourselves in that way is the degree to which we are free of fear. Because fear is nothing other than a nature outside of that flow, having identified itself with something that defines it, and now it has to protect that which has defined it. Bang, you're outside the flow. Your life is a no-go.
Wow. I'm like just processing that. Can I take one step back and ask you, you mentioned some of the laws and principles that have brought us here for this purpose. Can you tell us a little bit more about what those laws and principles are?
Oh, sure.
You're like, what? Unless you don't want to, I mean, it's cool, I don't mind.
Oh, no, I mean, look, that's what we're here to do, but we have to create a context, Joanna. You know, our task as human beings is what? I mean, you know, on any given day, we even joked about it prior to our actual chat here. You know, we've had a busy morning. You know, God knows I run a foundation with a global outreach, and and their volunteer staff all over the place. Nobody knows really what they're doing, and so and because everything's done communication through the net, it's so at any given moment, our identity is a derivative of some moment that's come that brings a disturbance or a promise. If it's a disturbance, I'm trying to put out the fire, get things straightened out, make the problem go away. If it's a pleasure or a promise, then I'm hot on the trail like a dog on a fox. You know, how do I nail this thing down so that I can feel more complete in myself? But neither one of those venues is serving our purpose or is true to who we are. They're an element of our life, not what's intended to define us.
Yeah.
So as long as we live in a world where our sense of self, our identity, is a derivative of any condition outside of us, we will live in perpetual fear that the condition is going to change, and then we will lose something that we think is important to us. So the context here, to start the dialogue, is that who and what you are cannot lose anything real. If we understand that and are able to have a sense of ourself born out of being in the flu, born of being in the flow, meaning present to all that is engaging us and that is defining us, there's no chance that we can understand any of the laws or principles, because you can't separate them from your relationship to the present moment.
Yeah.
You know, look, in this world, you and I, we get in our car, go tooling down the street, and there's laws that we have to obey. If we don't obey the laws, we're going to get a ticket. But behind the laws on the street is a law inside of us, for example. And the law inside of us says there are rules. There are rules that say if you are trying to add to yourself something to make yourself feel better about yourself, if you're trying to get somewhere so that when you get there you can be free of the pain of being where and what you are now, you will be anxious. Anxiety is the ticket. It is the result of breaking a law. But we are so conditioned to not just breaking laws, but justifying them by having a means in mind. So when I get where I'm going, when I get this done, then I'll be at peace. No. Then you will have momentarily put aside a part of you that is pushing you to become something. It will come back again and again and again. That's a law and a principle. If I don't learn the lesson in the pain, the lesson's coming back. So there's a couple laws and a couple principles, but we had to put it into context.
Thank you for that. I was going to ask, and this might seem like a crazy question, but there's a varying degree of people listening to this and watching this, and some of us are more spiritual and less spiritual, and I've been on this journey for, I mean, a tiny amount of time, obviously, compared to you. And to one more context question, and this, what is, and maybe this is what you've already covered in the identity, but all of your work is on self-realization. Is that what? How do you define self-realization then in this context? Is that just finding that true identity, and being really confident and secure in that? Is that just the same thing?
Well, kinda.
Okay, just checking. Enlighten me.
See, there's a lot of really bad misinformation. In fact, most of it is misinformation. And the reason that it's swallowed the way it is because you and I, basically, which is a level of consciousness, you and I are the instruments of whatever level of consciousness we live at. Christ said, "My Father's kingdom has many mansions." Translation: there are many levels of consciousness, and each and every one of us, according to how we are inwardly hooked up, how we're aligned with our own parts, determines that level of consciousness. One level of consciousness, the one that dominates the world today, is based on an idea that, oh, I woke up. Oh, I'm realized. Oh, I know what the law of this or that is. Yeah. On and on it goes. The assumption being, and the falseness of it, that I am somehow different than the thing that I'm claiming to be. I awoke, as if there's a me that now wanders through life awakened because of a single event that took place. No such single event takes place. It's a broad subject, but I'll try to put it into a context.
Yeah.
This moment is the whole shebang. There's no point outside of this moment. But our mind can't understand that life and our experience of it is really the ceaseless convergence of these celestial forces, these principles that never stop bringing existence into being. That's what life is. Life is a ceaseless revelation of a being that is continually manifesting itself in time. We, as human beings, have the most unique gift, which is that we can be aware of that ceaseless birth in ourselves as an endless process. Rebirth is not like so many phony baloney people walk around, I'm reborn, I'm reborn. The rebirth is an unending process of realizing who you are and who you are no longer in the same moment.
Yeah.
So that something new is born in that awareness, in that level of understanding there's never a moment in which a new sense of yourself isn't being born, and you're present to that new sense of yourself because you were present when the old sense of self was revealed as no longer being necessary, and it shed, just like a tree sheds a piece of fruit. Only imagine that in perpetuity. And then you have a little bit of understanding what self-realization is, what the awakened life is. Self-realization is participation in the self with a capital S that was never born and that never dies.
Beautiful. Yeah, I love it. I have so many even questions coming from that, and I've never heard it obviously articulated like that, and it's quite magical to hear it like that. And I think you're so right. There's so much misinformation and people running around saying one thing and not the other, and I'm just sort of becoming aware that that's why it's so important for us to learn from people like you who are obviously so wise. And I was just thinking how important this conversation was for all the people listening. So thank you for that. I just think it's really important.
It's a beautiful thing, Joanna. When for whatever reasons a man or a woman begins to understand to some extent that something in me keeps laying claim to understanding, laying claim to powers or possessions, laying claim to some aspect of myself that knows or that can do. And that man or woman begins to see that they are a body of contradictions, that I can speak of myself in one way as being a patient, wise, kind person, and the next moment I can be yelling my lungs out because I dropped my cup of coffee. Right? And never see the contradiction that either the moment is used as the revelation of ourself, so as to be released from who we no longer need to be, or every moment winds up being a knee-jerk reaction that brings out of us something that identifies with it, good or bad, and then we derive we define ourselves and trip through life. The reason I say it's so good is because when you start to see, you know what, that's reincarnation. It doesn't work. I'm tired of going in circles. I'd like to have some understanding that isn't circular, but that is aligned with the wisdom that I know awaits me, if you will, in my own higher consciousness.
I love that. I love that. And I was just sitting, I tipped an entire giant coffee down myself not that long ago. And I was with my sister and I was like, but I was so proud of myself because I didn't scream or shout or get angry. And I was just like, and it's done, right? I was like, what can I do to help this now? And I was like, oh, I barely even reacted. I was so proud of myself. So maybe I'm getting somewhere.
Well, yeah, that you were doing fine until you said you were proud of yourself.
Oh, shit. Okay.
Yeah. Do you think an eagle is proud of itself because it soars above the animals on the plane?
Yeah. Okay. I got
right?
you.
That's its nature. That's its nature. Well, look, you know what? That's all it is anyway, Joanna.
Right.
I swear to God, wherever we are, it's baby steps. That's the beauty of it. It's baby steps. Everything preparation for the next lesson. The next lesson is about what needs to be let go. And each time you let go of something because you see it no longer serves you, you suddenly stand in a more integrated sense of being that no longer depends on the things that other parts of you that you've let go used to need. It's not necessary anymore. For instance, you don't need fear anymore.
Can we talk a little bit more about fear? And it's obviously the main topic today, but I mean, I've definitely been consumed by it, I think, most of my life. And even in my business, I keep facing it anyway. And again, I get proud of myself for facing it because I'm like, oh, check you out, you did that thing, right? And,
That's right. I have good news for you and I have bad news for
Oh,
you. Which do you want first?
I don't know. Maybe I'll take the bad news first. Hit me.
Uh, the
But
bad news the bad news is that as long as you're proud of not being afraid,
yeah,
more more fear will come to you. Do you want the good news now?
yes, please.
The good news is that gradually you'll discover that who you are has nothing in the entire universe to fear.
Right.
If I'm created to be present enough to be changed by what the moment reveals in me about myself,
Mm,
how can I ever be afraid when now who I was the moment before isn't there anymore?
mm,
Do you understand? That, look, let's say that I'm identified, Joanna. Let's say I'm identified with wanting to do something. I'm going to use this example. Boy, I really want to make a good interview. Okay?
that
Let's just
that
say that.
that came up this morning.
I, I,
I prayed.
I, I understand. I'm just bringing it up as a sort of,
It's
yeah, right.
valid. It's valid, right?
Well, the very fact that I'm that something in me believes that I am going to be measured, my value as a human being somehow hinges on what this strange man in the United States is thinking about me. Can you be in the flow and be afraid?
No.
It's impossible.
Mm,
B, if I believe that my identity depends upon what you think of me, then I may not know it, but everything about my behavior is being determined by a fearful part of myself. It's
mm,
coloring my words, my actions, the things that I choose to say. But now let's say that I've been working long enough inwardly to realize that anything in me that I can catch wanting the approval of another human being, fawning in front of another human being,
mm,
anything I can catch. If I can see that part of myself, then it is no longer telling me who I am.
mm,
The more I see it trying to impress upon me posture, attitude, expression, the more I realize without taking thought, this can't be who I am.
mm,
So as I see that this fearful nature isn't myself, then can it dominate me anymore if I see that?
mm.
Here's a story. I like
I
stories.
love stories too.
All right. A man went to a third world country, kind of an amateur archaeologist, sociologist, wants to study people and their behaviors. And he wants to understand the way the marketing system works in this small set of villages that he's gone to study somewhere in South America. So he gets there and he finds a place to stay. And the next day he's on his way and a crossroad to where all the people bringing their wares to the open air market are coming. People carrying sugar cane, walking with chickens in hands, pigs on sticks, all these people coming down the road. And he joins the march. And as he's walking, he hears a noise behind him on the hill. Can't quite see it, but suddenly over the hill comes, and he can't believe with his eyes what he sees, a man wearing a saddle being ridden by a donkey pulling a cart full of sugar cane.
Okay.
Now he thinks, what in the world's going on? Well, why is that man letting a donkey ride him? That makes no sense at all. Maybe it's some tradition I haven't learned about. So he with a translator with him, he goes and he says to the man, excuse me, I just want to know what's going on. Why is that donkey in a saddle riding you and you pulling the cart? And the man says to him without missing a beat, well, it was the only way I could get the donkey to go to the market with me. Now, does it make sense for a man or a woman to be saddled by a donkey?
No.
Why?
I mean, the size, and I'd be crushed. I don't think I'd manage it. Um,
Well, no,
but
Joanna,
it
it's
just,
the wrong order of things.
well, there's that too. I'm like, is that too obvious? I'm
Yeah,
like,
I don't
is
want
this
to
a
put you
trick?
on a
Is
spot,
this a
girl,
trick
but
question? Oh my god!
it's the wrong order of things.
Right, of course.
We don't torture animals, but animals, by our relationship to them, our superior intelligence, emotional qualities, capacity to imagine and create. Animals serve us. We put the saddle on the donkey so it can pull the cart.
Mm,
The story is a parallel to what's happened to you and I.
mm,
We are not meant to let thoughts and feelings, fearful, anxious worries, ride us, tell us where to go, whip us along, tell us what to get done, how to get it done, what to protect, what to run after. That's not the relationship we are intended to have as human beings, but that's exactly what's happened to us.
mm.
And the thing is, I never put this in the story, but I'm going to add it the next time I tell it. It's a talking donkey.
Huh? Of
Oh,
course.
sure. It's a talking jackass. And here's what it says. It explains to the human why the human being has to carry it.
Wow.
Doesn't anxiety explain to you why you have to rush?
Mm,
Doesn't fear tell you what you have to do in order to get it off your back?
mm.
You
Yeah.
see the parallel here?
Absolutely. That's.
It's all upside down. And we are
Mm,
so asleep spiritually, we don't even know that we are carrying on our backs these low level parts of ourselves that have come to dominate our lives, to convince us that we need to make a good impression if we want to make a positive move in life, that we have to get people to like us, even if it means compromising our values, that we have to do all of these things in order to keep in place, listen to this, a life where a donkey rides us to market.
right. So how? So I get that it doesn't make sense, and it's a horrible way to live, and it really is, and it is. It's that feeling of powerlessness. Why? Where? I have like two questions. I have more than two, but like, where does this? How has this happened, or where has this come from? And then how the heck can I get the donkey off my back?
Well, first, you could say that this, in quotes, happened a long time ago. I'm not going to go into the fall of the Garden of Eden and all that business. Uh, a long time ago, something happened to human consciousness. And instead of being in relationship with the world around us, much like it says, not just in Western scripture, but Eastern and Western alike, we were able to commune with the animals. We knew what was going on around us because our senses were alive enough to be part of this entanglement of energy that is always recreating itself.
Mm,
That consciousness moved from being in a unified state with the laws and principles that bring creation into existence
mm,
into a state of being outside of it,
mm,
so that one's sense of self was now defined by a mind that was apart from the real mind of life. Do you understand that?
mm. Yeah.
Right? So that's, if you want to say where it started, is when this consciousness fell into such a divided state that I began to believe I'm different than the world I walk around in.
Mm,
Certainly I am. I mean, I'm looking out the window at my bird bath and my feeders. I'm not well, I have been called the bird brain, but, I'm not a bird. And yet, if I'm really attentive to the moment and a little nuthatch or a finch comes, I love my animals here where I live, because in proper relationship to every one of these creatures is revealed within me its nature.
Mm.
I know something of its timidity. I know something of its tension. I know something of its animation. That when we are present to the relationship of the moment, the gift of that relationship is a revelation of parts of ourselves we wouldn't know otherwise.
Mm.
Yes? So that means that capacity is in me to know the life of everything that I'm capable of attending to completely.
Yeah. Wow.
Well, that's gone.
Yeah.
Because all I attend to now is what the donkey's telling me is necessary for me to make a profit someplace or to become someone special.
Mm.
All gone. We have fallen out of a relationship with real life and are so asleep we don't know it. If it weren't for the pain, the fears, the worries, and the anxieties that ultimately we see we can't get rid of, we would never know it. We would live in a constant state of compromising our own consciousness for the sake of finding something to console us in the moment from our own fallen state.
Mm.
So that's number one. What's happened.
Yeah.
That's the best I can explain it to you.
Yeah.
Now, what
Yeah.
do I do? What do I do about it?
Right.
I I begin to use my dissatisfaction instead of letting it use me.
Mm. Yeah.
I mean, I hope it's not too deep. I'm
Perfect.
okay. I don't know. You and I are in the flu. we're having a nice conversation,
Yeah.
and the point is this: by the grace of God, I'm unhappy being afraid of my finances.
Mm.
By the grace of the divine, by the Buddhic nature, whatever you want to call it.
Mm.
What a blessing to be aware of something in me that would sell its soul to get somebody to say something nice about it.
Mm.
Now, in the world, when that fear comes or that wish to be approved of it comes, there's very little in us that's aware of that nature as being a negative. What we're aware of is what that nature tells us we have to do to get it off our back.
Mm.
You can't get the donkey off your back by talking to it. You
Okay.
know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
impossible.
Yeah.
It's impossible.
So he doesn't do kindly with being talked to. What are a few? How else can I get him off? Because I'm feeling I kind of feel the weight of it. Like it's funny. I can actually kind of feel that.
We need to have a relationship. We need to have a relationship, Joanna, in those moments with this part of ourselves
Okay.
that is present enough to understand what's happening.
Yeah.
Now, in this instance, just as an example, I begin, like you said, to be aware of the fact that there's some kind of weight on my back. I've tried a million things to feel free, and I have a good moment once in a while. I can be proud of myself every once in a while. You know, but the fact is that it keeps coming back.
Mm.
Now, let's just take this as an example. If you're in Australia,
Yeah.
home of the great white shark.
Yes.
If you went out in a boat with some friends to have a beer,
Yeah.
and by some accident the driver hit the accelerator, you flew off the back of the boat, and they didn't notice because they were all tanked that you were gone.
God. Yeah. Cancel cleared leap. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And there you are in the water, and a great white shark swims up to you,
Mm-hmm.
and it shows you a big toothy grin, and it says, "Joanna, how nice to see you today. Would you like me to give you a ride back to the harbor?" Now, are you going to say, "Oh, thank you, Mr. Great White Shark"? Or are you going to be the first radio personality ever to walk on water and get back to the harbor by yourself?
Yeah, I'd maybe try and hitch a ride. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, why? 'Cause you know a shark doesn't want to help you.
Yeah. I suppose he could take me further out to sea, so I would have to trust that he'd want to take me back to the
No.
shore.
The nature of a shark is to eat you.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, is it another trick question? Okay, tell me.
Isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, of course it is. Yeah.
The nature of a negative state is to eat you. Do I need to think to myself, what do I do? A great white shark is coming? Do I need to think to myself, oh my God, a grizzly bear just came into my room?
Right.
What's the best thing to do?
Yeah.
Or seeing the nature of the creature answering the moment and giving me, without having to think about it, what my relationship will be to that creature. Isn't that the case?
Sure. Yeah.
That's what being awake is. Awake is being present to the nature of the thought or the feeling, so that in your living relationship with it, you see it for what it is, not for what it's telling you that it is.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, yeah, right. I'm with you. I'm with you. I think I am.
In that world, how can the donkey put a saddle on me?
Because you let him.
The only way is that somehow I fell asleep and looked and listened and thought, well, look, this time it's different. This time I really need to be angry, because if I'm not angry, something terrible is going to happen. Someone's going to really run me over. If I don't strike back and punish those who have hurt me, they'll do it again. And the animal, that nature, is on your back because, listen, it showed you something that upon, I'll say this in the simplest terms possible.
Thanks.
You might want to write this down, listeners.
Yeah, I've got a pen here. I'm taking notes.
No, there is no such thing as psychological fear without negative imagination, period. That means the condition that's frightening me isn't responsible for the fear. What's really frightening me is that because I'm asleep in this divided state I mentioned, my mind has taken the event, whatever it is that's happened, and it has begun to paint a picture. It starts to tell me what the event means. Now, can anybody know what an event means before there's an event?
No.
It's impossible.
Yeah.
So what my mind does is it paints a negative picture.
Yeah.
It basically projects a negative outcome. Now here I am. I don't know that the donkey is talking to me, that it's saying, oh my God, look at that. Do you know what's going to happen? Look. And what do I look at other than what my own mind has painted? And in my sleep, I resist my own imagination.
Yeah. Yeah.
My mind creates the thing it doesn't want so that it can create someone who will be afraid of it.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Now, what more do I need to know than that? If I'm not present to myself,
yeah.
my mind is going to do what it habitually does.
Yeah.
It's going to react instantaneously to every condition. The reaction is predicated as a rule on something in myself that already has a vested interest in left or right. And once that reaction takes place and I identify with what it tells me, the donkey's on my back. Waking up isn't about discovering power, Joanna. It's about realizing where we have agreed to be powerless.
Ooh. Okay. Yeah. So I'm writing that down. Realize that's been a
Right?
huge
I mean,
message for me
isn't that what we do?
Yeah.
Aren't we all running around trying to figure out how we can protect ourselves and add some new measure of power through possession, through property, through social peers? When the fact is, the matter is, everything that we do to add, in quotes, power to ourselves only strengthens the beast that is telling us we have to have it in order to be safe.
Okay. So one last question, maybe one last question. So I'm facing the shark. I'm in the water. I think that threw me. I'm actually a surf lifesaver here in Australia. So I volunteer, and we used to do practice in the boats, and they'd literally fling you off the boat and you'd be bobbing around in a
How did I
wetsuit,
know? How did I know?
waiting for your friends to go back into shore, pick up another crew member, come back out again. And I have literally been that person bobbing around, waiting. And sometimes I'm like, they're taking an awful long time
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
to
Like
come.
30 seconds is too long.
Like it'd be a good few minutes floating around a couple hundred meters offshore, and your mind does get a little active, shall we say? And I'm like, no, I get what happens what I think about, la 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 la, and I do. That's what really happens when you're floating around out there.
You know what? I want you to ask the question, but I want to show you something.
Yeah.
You said my mind gets a little active.
Yes.
Isn't a better way of saying it? Something in my mind wants to torment me and create fear. Isn't that the fact? We say, oh, it gets a little active, as if it's a child out of, running wild. No, there is something in me that when it has an opportunity will produce a condition that causes me to be afraid. What's going on? Why does it want to do that? And the answer is because every time it does that, it produces a sense of myself that now has to look to that same mind to rescue it. This is how false authority comes into existence and gains its power, not just in the world and governments around us, but within ourselves. As above, so below. This nature will create a problem so there can be someone with it so that the nature can then solve the problem that wouldn't exist if it didn't create it to begin with.
Right. Yeah.
So now to your question.
Back to, so it's all like, I guess it's how, the question therefore, I think, is how, and this might be a really terrible question, but how do you then become, if it's all about being present in the moment and not reacting to the fear or realizing when that thing comes up, what is really going on. Is the question how to become more present? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I understand. That's what everybody wants to know.
Yeah, I'm wondering if that's the real question.
Well, at least you have the sense to understand that it's like asking, how do I put down a skillet that's burning my hand?
Right.
I pick up a pot and it's red hot on the handle. I was asleep. I don't say, God, what do I do with this skillet? The minute my body, its native intelligence, realizes it's being hurt, it drops the skillet.
Yeah.
The minute that we have any awareness at all of what is being done to us in our sleep, our awareness drops the relationship with the part of us doing the punishing. Our problem, honestly, is that we're so used to explaining our pain to ourselves that it never dawns on us that our explanations are coming to us from the very nature that's creating the pain.
Yeah.
Can you put that together? I
Yeah.
mean, how many times have I told myself, "Oh God, I'm an idiot. I don't know what's wrong with me." But oh well, yeah. Now I see. Now I've learned. No, you haven't, because the real lesson in that moment has nothing to do with an action you will take the next time.
Mm.
The real lesson in the moment is I wasn't in the moment,
Mm.
and that's how I got hurt.
Mm.
And when that happens enough, my priorities shift. It's not that I don't go out and do the stuff that I do. I love to go out and take walks, talk to my animals, play golf. When I have time, that's what I love. I have
Mm.
bonsai trees. I love shaping trees. I love that. But there's an order to things.
Yeah.
And the first order is to practice the presence. However you want to finish that sentence. That's the first order. Because if I'm not in the presence, if I'm not present to myself, that means something else is riding me.
Mm.
If I'm not aware of the donkey talking to me, it's on my back.
Right. Okay.
What else do I need to know?
I think that's it. Like I'm like I, yeah, I'm just wrapping my head around this concept, and I'm just, and for me, like I can see, I totally get what you're trying to say, and I'm sure everybody's like, I just feel like there's one more piece to the puzzle that I'm not quite like,
Okay, all right. I'll
I don't
tell you a
know.
story.
One,
I'll tell
one,
you a.
one last, and I know I'm very conscious of your time, and
No, it's all right. It's okay. Listen, before before your last question,
yeah,
I'll throw in another piece of the puzzle. Okay,
okay,
a little story.
okay.
Shall I, or do you want to move on?
Oh, I mean, if yeah, I'd love that. Sure.
One of my favorite stories. I rarely ever tell a story two times, but this story is one of my favorite because it will help you understand a little bit about what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So here's a young woman, and she is hiking through the desert southwest of the United States. For those people that don't know what that is, there are areas in the southwest part of the United States that are mostly desert, high chaparral, some mountains, of course, but beautiful canyons, eroded over time through flash floods, rains, all of these. I mean, it's unbelievable. In fact, over my shoulder, you can see it. You can see a little bit. That's a line. That's a canyon of red in New Mexico.
That's
You
beautiful.
walk through these ravines, and it's like a sculptor has taken a great spatula and rounded out all of these unbelievable standing waves of stone in
Mm,
different colors.
beautiful.
So she's down there exploring these ravines, and as an explorer, a naturalist, taking pictures, unaware of certain things that cause these canyons to appear. And by and large, it's flash floods that make these canyons the shape they're in.
Yeah.
So she wanders into a particular ravine, not noticing the little sign with a skull and crossbones on it that says danger, uh, dead end ravine, careful.
Yeah.
She wanders and doesn't see it. Meanwhile, 5 miles away in a tower, a ranger is sitting out and looking across the horizon to make sure everything's copacetic. And he notices that about 10 miles away, a huge thunderstorm is coming. This is what produces flash floods. He knows it. So he's on extra alert, looking around. And then he happens to see just the tail end of the girl's backpack as she walks into that ravine. And he thinks, oh my God, thunderstorm, flash flood, she's dead. She's a goner. He runs down the pole, gets in his Jeep, and tries to get to the place where the young girl is. Am I building sufficient tension?
Yeah, I'm like,
Okay, yeah. Too late. Here comes a wall of water racing 15 feet high, cactus, coyotes, scorpions, snakes, boiling in this dirty water, rushing down the ravine right towards where she's about to turn the corner. She's still oblivious. He reaches the top of the ravine, yells down to her, but she can't hear because the noise of the waters drowning everything out. She turns around and sees the waters careening towards her. The ranger thinks, oh, well, not my fault. I feel bad. I'll have to dig her out 5 miles from here. When all of a sudden he sees her look up at the waters 4 feet away from her, and she says something. He can't hear what she's saying. He just sees her moving her lips and think maybe she's doing the Lord's Prayer, have mercy on me. But the next thing he sees, he can't understand. The waters part right at her feet. Her shoes don't even get wet. 15 feet high, the waters just go racing by her, and she's standing there, her hair blowing from the wind, but not getting a drop of water on her. He gets in his Jeep, he runs down, and he gets to her. He says, what in the world was that? Are you a magician? Are you some kind of god? What's that about? Oh, I'm nothing like that, she said, as if what she'd done was of no account. He said, well, what happened? What did you say? She said, oh, that? All I said was, you go on without me.
Ooh, beautiful. Yeah.
See, if I can catch the flood of thoughts and feelings, that torrent of fearful doubt, worry, if I can be present to it, I have authority over it. My authority is that the only authority it has over me is that I identify with it. I let it carry me away. I don't have to let it carry me away. In fact, I can use it to show me the parts of myself that attracted the flood to begin with.
I'm with you now.
So that every moment becomes a moment that I leave a different order of man or woman that I was before, because I've had revealed to me parts that were concealed to me, and now I am conscious of them.
Beautiful. Ah, so good. So good. I love it. I love it. This is, it's just fascinating. And I could sit and grill you for the rest of the day, but I'm just very conscious. I've got to wrap this up in a moment. But it's just, I love the way you put things, and I just think it's been so good. I just really appreciate it. But before we go, though, we do, you've been very kind, and you have a very a special offer for everybody listening, because I think I feel like we've opened up a question, or opened up some awarenesses, and I want people to be able to help take them that next step forward.
Yes, God willing. Yes.
Exactly. Can you tell us a little bit about, it's called Stop Being Afraid Once and For All?
Well, my foundation, by the way, I live and teach in Southern Oregon. I know we covered it in the beginning. I speak there 4 times a week to a group of men and women who have either moved there or who come from around the world. And we also stream now quite a few of these talks. Yeah, we have a wisdom school called Guy Finley Now. If the listeners go to guyfinley.org, they can find out about some of this. Or the wisdom school is guyfinleynow.com. But here's the point. We have a special product called Stop Being Afraid Once and For All. It's a 60-minute MP3. And we've really severely reduced the download price for the people that are joining us on this call. And I would obviously urge anyone who has felt anything that we've said, sensed that, maybe there's an angle to this thing I haven't understood, but now I can see just that much more. You know what? If you can see that much more, you can see that much more. And if you can see that much more, you can see that much more. Because all you are seeing is into your own consciousness that you've been asleep to. That's what waking up is. It is being able to remember the truth of myself in the moment when something that wants to lie to me about my nature would put a saddle on my back.
Yeah.
Daring to die to that part of myself when it appears is what the sacrifice is, and it is the root of self-realization. So stop being afraid once and for all. I guess you're going to tell them where they can go to get this.
Yeah, all the details will be linked up just underneath here under the video. Yeah.
All right.
But yeah, stop being afraid. I went and got it. It's also at I think it's guyfinley.org/freedom, so you can find it there. But we'll have all the other details and other ways you can get in contact and other amazing free gifts that Guy has are all linked up just below in the notes, and we'll also have it linked up in the email. So make sure you check out all that. I actually got it, and I've been listening to it, and it's fantastic. And it's one of those things I know I'm going to listen to it multiple times for it to completely get into my body, as it were. Just like, because I'm understanding it, but I need to like go another level.
Do you know why, Joanna? We each time, if we ever find something as rare as it is that's actually true, do you know why you can listen to it or read it almost daily and find something new in it? Do you know why?
I'm going to guess it's because my ego's tried to reject it the first time it heard it, and so I need to hear it again.
We can flip it around.
Right.
Because whatever I absorbed that I intuited was good and true changed by nature just that much, so that the next time I go back to it, I'm capable of receiving from it that much more about myself.
Got it.
So that it isn't that the book got better, it's that there's more light in me. There's more understanding. And the fact is, the book didn't create the understanding. The talk, this interview, doesn't create understanding. It reveals an understanding that already exists.
I love that. I love that. And I say that quite often, like the number of times I've read books on the same topic or listened to the same talk or lecture over and over, or even gone to the same event, and I still get something from. I get more from it the second time, and I think people don't give that enough weight, or they sort of discount it too quickly. It's like, oh, I've done that, or I've visited that, or I've and I think there's a lot to be said for that.
There's no end to that kind of love. It's as endless as is your appreciation of it.
Absolutely.
So you see, now you have to come to Southern Oregon here, Joanna.
I know. I think I might have to. I'll just sit in lectures for weeks.
You said you were thinking about coming to the U.S.
Right. I'm just going to come and sit in lectures and take notes for weeks on end and see if I get it.
Anyway, I'm extending an invitation to you personally.
Thank you so much. I will make my way there for sure at some point. I'd love to. I've never been to Oregon, so it's on my list. Beautiful, beautiful country. I have no doubt. Well, thank you again so much. I massively appreciate your time and energy and of course, your wisdom and the lessons. I knew I was going to learn something. And it's absolutely delivered. So thank you so much for being here. You're welcome, Joanna. I'm glad that we had the time together, and I hope that we get to meet someday in person. I'd love that. Thank you so much, Guy.